Today's guest is Alexis Nicole White, who is a certified project manager and scrum master with over 14 years of experience in implementing information technology and telecommunications project. Utilizing her expertise, she helps businesses solve their most complex challenges by implementing viable solutions to drive change. Specific areas of expertise include infrastructure, data, cybersecurity, and the mobile workforce. And her previous experience includes voice, so wireless and VoIP, audiovisual integrations, digital supply chain, and ERP augmentation. So, Alexis, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And it's a good day.
Love it. Yeah. Before we started the recording, you said it was a magnificent Monday. And to be honest, I've never actually heard somebody say magnificent Monday. So I like the vibe. I enjoyed that. So I am all for it. So given that it's magnificent Monday, I'd love for you to dive into, how you got to doing what you're doing. Because it seems like a very, technical, specialized area, which, I'd love to know kind of your story of how you got into it and where you are right now.
It was not intentional. I actually have a history of being a creative. And so I was anti anything this technical, this rigid, it's one of those things. And it's kind of funny because when I look at my personality, I'm like, yeah, you belong here because I'm very logical. Either it works, it doesn't work. I'm very rigid in the way that I think. I did a brain study, the HBDI study, if anyone has heard of that before. And when I got my results back, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense because I am definitely a blue brainer. And even under stress, I'm way off the charts, very analytical, logical. It has to make sense, very linear, that type of thing, which is interesting because I am flexible at times, but it has to make sense. Why are we necessitating this flexibility? I just don't go for anything that people say. So when you think about it in that perspective, it absolutely makes sense that I'm here, but it was not intentional for me to get into this space. I've been in this space for almost 15 years now. If you really think about, what the entry level point and how I've matured my career over the time, it was just divine intervention, in all honesty. I wish I had a more, planned answer, in terms of, oh, I went to school for this and I just knew, because I didn't. It was something that just happened to me and I mastered it, and I continue to stretch myself as I go. So now what makes me do what I do in terms of consulting for small businesses is that I realize that there has been a gap in understanding of how things really work. Typically, entrepreneurs have a specific skill that they are monetizing. So what I mean by that is you may fix cars. So now you want to open up an auto repair shop, right? You know how to do that, but you don't know the ins and outs of other things. Now, translating that over, you might be an attorney and you decide that you want to open up your own law practice. And while you are familiar with different legal things that you have to do, maybe you don't know how to really set things up to really move forward. So utilizing the skills and expertise of project management, because everything can be a project, I help bridge that gap for those who don't know and those who want to know how to make things come into fruition so that you can have best success and to be able to move forward with actually successful implementations, because a lot of people waste a lot of money trying to do the basics things. I'll say, for example, trying to get internet up and going when you're scaling your business, right? That's a full-fledged project. It's not just so much of having people come out to run cable and plugging it into a box and making sure it works. You need to make sure you have the bandwidth that you need. The security is in place. When are you going to have this installed? Because you can't do this during normal business hours because now you're out of commission. So it's so many different things, especially in this world of e-commerce. You can't just throw up an online store and think that that's how that works. You have to really have a plan from front to back end of how this is going to work and how does it impact your operations. So those, in a nutshell, are things that I help to quantify for people who are looking to grow their business or to undertake some type of project to get a tangible result that will minimize any waste as possible.
Beautiful. So, I mean, I think your explanation of it is fully aligned with how you described yourself as like very, planned and like rigid, and it's got to make sense. It's got to be structured properly. It was a beautifully structured answer. So kudos to you for that. And just to kind of elaborate on that, what I've heard is like, especially when you describe the bit about the internet and like the lines have to be put in, etc. It's like so many people get into business looking from the outside in of like, oh, it's like, this person just like he presses this button and then this funnel goes, or like you press go here and then all these things work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when they work, it's beautiful. It's like I want that outcome, but the realization of the skill set and the work and the thinking that goes into setting that up so that when you do press the button, it does function the way that you want it to. I think is very much overlooked, not even just by new entrepreneurs, like all entrepreneurs at any new going into whatever new level you're going into. And it sounds to me like what you do is you're basically the bridge of that gap. Like either I press this button, it doesn't work, so we call you in, or I know I have to like have this button set up, so I'm going to call you so that we can get as close to right the first time, right? So would that kind of be accurate from your vantage point?
Yes, it's definitely a discipline and precision. And, a lot of times when people, we all joke as certified project managers, that we're just paper pushers. It's a joke, right? But it's not really a joke, because at the end of the day, it's so many different pieces of what goes into a project. That's why it's called a discipline. We have to orchestrate all of these different things. You have to align the vision with the funding, the capital that's involved there. We also have to make sure that we have the resources, that's your people or your physical resources that, like if you need cable, how much cable, like it's just so many different things that go into it, and plan it out on the schedule. So it's not just written documentation, it's quantifiable data. Are we burning through money faster or not? Are we either behind schedule or are we ahead of schedule? I mean, it's just so many different pieces that goes into it, but I'm the mastermind behind managing all of these different intricacies to make sure that you have success. So when I express to you, a recommendation or a best practice, or, some insight based on previous projects that I've managed, it's not to be, difficult or combative. It's to really get you on the right path to where we're going to hit success the way that we thought we were. And if we're going to miss that, we're going to get as close to perfect as we possibly can so that you don't have any missteps.
Beautiful. I love that. So in that case, given that, not only do you have this like vast experience of, more than a decade, like doing this, it means that you kind of seen the, beginning stages of a lot of technologies, I'm assuming as well, to kind of like their maturity now, et cetera. What is it that's happening in your business right now that, you're finding as a challenge or as a problem, or that's like a backlog for you?
It's definitely, I will say, soft skills, believe it or not, is not my strength. And I have been working on this more so within the last 5 years, because I'm cognizant that the perception may be that I'm being difficult, and that's not it at all. I take pride in my work. I'm very passionate about the things that I mean, you just said it yourself. I've seen so many different things come into fruition, right? And so knowing that I've seen so many different things, so many worst case scenarios, I'm always, I'm almost like the project whisperer, right? Because somebody's like, oh my God, it's going off the rails, I need your help. And it's like, okay, so it's like when I come in and I start getting information, I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like this is where we went wrong. So this is what I recommend we do to get back on track. Or based on previous experience, this is where I've noticed, people have seen most success. And so, I'm learning now that when I'm not being heard, don't fight to be heard, because at the end of the day, they're the sponsors, they're paying for this, right? So at this point, you've made the recommendation, you might have rephrased it in case they didn't understand the first time. And at this point, I just I agree with you, whether or not I'm in agreement with you, because I'm not trying to make this an argument or make this, some type of back and forth, because that's not my intention. I just want you to win. And so learning how to articulate that the softest way possible has been a challenge, because like I said, that's where I'm struggling. Like, I'm very flexible when I know I need to be flexible, but when it's not making sense, it's like, okay, now why are we doing this again? Like, it's not computing up here. So now I'm just like, okay, whatever you say, because I don't know what else to say.
Got it. Okay. So if you could dive a bit, or I guess maybe wider into that, how, in your own words, is this translating into like a business ceiling or a business problem for you specifically?
It has translated, because what I find is that out of frustration, you kind of shut down, right? And so that's not really helpful when you are the project leader, or you're the consultant, or you are the expert, right? Because that's what they call you here to do, is to be an expert. So, like I said, I've gotten a lot better, but I know that that's still something that I struggle with, because, even something as, it's a magnificent Monday, like I'm saying anything to make sure that people don't perceive me in the wrong way, that I am legitimately and truthfully here to support you, your business endeavor. I'm a part of your team. I love to give you any feedback that I possibly can, because I'm here for the right reasons and I have the best of intentions. And so, if that means that I have to, I don't know if you watch those little videos like on Instagram, like the little dogs are like saying what I said versus what I really mean, emails, like even if, it's me having to type it out and then go back and delete and re-edit, I'm always trying to revise to make sure that the person who's receiving the message receives it with the best of intentions, that I sent it in. And I understand that I can't control your perception, but I can do everything that I possibly can to make sure that you understand that I am a team player that is here for you.
Got it. Okay. And in terms of your actual business, like, because I guess I give you the context of the question. So like for me, I can 110% see how in the fulfillment of your contract and your services, this is going to become an issue. I can see it, how it becomes an issue for like continuity, like if somebody's going to, rehire you for another project or extend or whatever, right? Like if that communication isn't there, if the perceptions differ, if the worldviews differ, if how the result turned out differs in perception, 110%, I can see how the fulfillment piece gets affected by this. So as far as like your business, is this, and you don't have to give any specifics by any means as far as like numbers or whatever, but is this impacting, like your revenue is like locked into a particular ceiling? I can't seem to find new clients. I'm not getting referrals. Like what is showing up for you in that way?
So for me, it's more so making sure as I prospect clients, right? Because people will call you all day, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good fit. And this is inevitably supposed to be a partnership, right? So for me, if I'm starting to get wind, right, just of energetic vibrations, right, that this is not going to be a good fit, because if we're just having basic conversation and I feel like you're not hearing or you're not willing to listen, then at this point, I'm shutting down from the beginning. So just trying to make sure that I find clients that I can actually work with and help has been a challenge, right? But at the end of the day, I guess because, and this is ironic, right? My top 5 strengths, integrity is first and foremost. And then my second one is determination and strategy, determination, and communication. So those are like my strengths, right? So when it's like we're just talking just to talk, like it burns my biscuits, so it's like, okay, I hear the concerns, but what are we going to do differently in order for you to get to the end result? Because you're calling me because you have a problem or you have a need, and I'm here to help you. But if we can't get past what you are continuously doing that is not serving you, and you're not hearing that as an expert, I think we should probably go left and you continue to go right. I don't want to take your money. and I don't want to waste your money. So for me, it's like, okay, how steadfast are you about synergy as much as you are about getting your business up and going or off the ground or continuously to grow? You know what I mean? So that's where it's showing up for me, because it's like, I don't think this is going to be a good partnership, but you choose me as much as I choose you, right? And this is a team. That's the benefit of being an independent consultant, is that I get to choose that. In the workplace, I don't get a choice of who my team is. So, you kind of just pacify it and deal with it. And, you just, you be like, okay, here comes Betty. And Betty is just always on 10 cups of coffee and just, whatever, you kind of know people's personalities. But when we're vetting each other and we're prospecting and you're evaluating whether or not you're going to go with me as opposed to a competitor, or likewise, if I'm going to choose you to pick this up as a project, as opposed to going to the next client, those are things that I think about, because I want us to be successful. And I don't want to spend the next 30 days pontificating back and forth about something that doesn't have anything to do with the price of tea in China, So I don't want to do that. And that's where it's showing up for me.
Got it. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of relay back what I heard, and you correct me if, something doesn't align or whatever. So most of this is happening on the prospect level, right? Like you are visible, people see you. I like that vibe. I want to know what she's about. Can she help me? They reach out to you and you get into these discussions that are basically around, I see your problem this way. This is the direction that you should go. And then the client is like, or the prospect is, well, no, I just want you to go and like execute on the vision that I already have, because like I know best. Like, is that kind of what ends up happening?
Yes. And I'll give you an example further. So there was a gentleman who has a multi-million-dollar business who said, help, I'm hemorrhaging money left and right. I don't know why I'm hemorrhaging money. This is their issues. This is my KPIs, da. So immediately I drill down to an operational issue, which is also a part of what you do as a project manager, right? So continuous improvement is important. So the first thing I said, okay, when was the last time you've done training? When was the last time you revised processes? When was the last time that you've gone into your fulfillment center to see what your team is doing? Because where you're wasting money is redundancy. I heard that right away. Oh, no, that's not it. That has nothing to do with it. We're good there. And it was like he got really sensitive to that. And so I was confused, because I said, but I thought you said you were hemorrhaging money. And this was a concern because you've invested and you have liquidity and you know that you're profitable, but you're losing money. So if we can stop and eliminate this waste here, you can make even more money and be even more profitable and continue to scale and grow your business. And I was trying to understand what was so problematic about me suggesting that we do a continuous improvement exercise, because that is a part of ongoing operations. You've understood that you have to go from A to B to get to C, right? So don't go from A to C and then go back to B, because that's counterproductive, right? So let's do this right the first time in order and move forward. And he just was not hearing it. And when I tell you, he was so, you could tell he was insulted just because I made that simple observation based on what he's telling me. And I was just like, okay, this is not going to be a good fit, because instead of you saying, I just never thought about that, you got offended because I pointed out the obvious, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, this is not going to be a good fit, because I can see I will spend most of my time trying to convince you of how to execute, as opposed to us being able to execute and move forward to the next issue.
Got it. And did you get paid for that conversation or no?
I actually did not take his money because I didn't want to waste his money. I was just like, I'll do this for free.
So I guess to just clarify my question a bit more, like that whole discussion, your viewpoint, your analysis, your reflection back to him happened before there was like a contract or a consulting fee exchange. This was like
correct
he's a prospect and we're evaluating whether we're not going to work together.
Right. I was just
Okay.
filling him out, getting the understanding of what his business was, because it was not as straightforward as it would seem to be. And I think thus that's where he was hemorrhaging money too, because everybody wants to be the jack of all trades, but as they say, you're a master of none. So, I'll keep it simple. We can't have an auto repair shop and a scarf sewing business in the same business entity, right? Those need to be two separate entities with two separate operations and processes and ways of working. So to simplify, they merged a whole bunch of stuff into one business, and it wasn't translating in terms of profitability. And it was obvious that it needed to be separated, and each thing needed to have its own processes documented. And, because like I'm switching hats. So let's just go and visit as employees. One minute I'm selling scarves, the next minute I'm going to change a tire. Like, think about just how counterproductive that is in a day. So
100%.
Unfortunately, he was wasting a lot of money in just labor because no one is consistently perfecting what they do. If you go to a tire shop, they may change tires, they may install tires, they may install rims. There is some continuity there, right? They may even change the oil, but they're not going to go and turn into a body shop while you're there. Like, that's just something they're not doing. So, in simplified ways, he got a little bit offended because I was saying to him, we need to do some continuous improvement and streamline each individual operation as its own, and you can roll it up under your own incorporation however you want to, but we need to break this out because you're hemorrhaging money in that way.
So in that vein, because you had mentioned about the same client or prospect, right? There's no point to go from A to C if we got to backtrack and go to B so that we can actually make it to C properly. Okay. When you now put the lens back onto yourself, when you are at the stage of, I have a prospect and we're vetting. So if in this example, A is somebody reaches out and we're on a call about working together. If that's A, C would be the project has started and now my expertise is being shown to the client as like, this is the solution that I see for you. What has to happen in B for C to effectively happen?
That's our discovery phase. So at this point now we're looking at the car in the conversation. I think I want to buy this car, right?
So, okay, I'm just going to challenge you here in a little bit because your mind is so analytical and it's so good at creating like analogies to things. And you're like, everything you're saying makes absolute sense. That can sometimes deter us away from shining the mirror on ourselves. And I have a reason why I'm going here. So I'm just going to invite you not to interrupt you and like discount what you're saying, but just to kind of bring it back to in this example, right? So you are with that prospect, that's stage A. C is I'm delivering on my expertise. From your perspective and his perspective, what has to align in B?
So as we do our discovery and we start to go underneath the hood of what's really happening, breaking it down, that's when I make, after my assessment, my recommendations on what the path will look like to move forward to go to C. And so we have to get to some consensus, right? So this is what you're...
Pause right there, right? You had described what I interpreted to be as C, and what you just, like, if we rewind back this conversation and we run back through what you said, like you basically gave the whole breakdown of like, this is wrong. There's redundancy issues. This is why you're bleeding money. Your employees can't be doing like 10 different things at once. They got to be, more tailored, more focused. That's the issue. Okay. You yourself didn't really say, okay, well, that's C, that's post being paid. You actually delivered that at B from my vantage point. Right. So like if the discovery is about, should we work together? My question to you is, what part of you is trying to prove so hard that you're an expert that you give away all of your consulting at B, doing in many ways from the outside looking in what you describe your client to do. I went to C, now I got to backtrack to B, because B, from my vantage point, is I see your problem. I can fix it. This is how much it's going to cost. Do you want to go forward? It's not, I see your problem. Here's all the breakdown of the problems. Now pay me, because that conversation that you just had for C, that's going to be a thing on the fulfillment side. But at that point, they've already committed. So they're more likely to actually listen to you. But at this point, they haven't committed. So now it becomes an argument of whose worldview is right.
Right. And I understand exactly what you're saying, because typically what I do when I do my discovery phase and I do my analysis, I typically write all that stuff out. But in all honesty, I can gauge from the conversation that we weren't going to get that far, just based on conversation. Because what I would typically say to a client is, okay, I'm going to take this information and I'm going to present to you two different path forwards of which way it looks. And I give them a high level breakdown of what it looks like. And I could kind of I could feel that there will be some hesitancy anyway. Like sometimes, when people want to buy or they're going to buy into you, their response is a little bit different. It's not so aggressive, because they want the help, right? So that's why, and you're absolutely right. I did do that. And that was something that I've had to learn to not do as well, is not to give all the milk away to the cow when, it's a streamlined approach to how we get there. So what you're saying absolutely makes sense. Absolutely.
Perfect. And then, so you would say that this is like, it's been a pattern, right? Like this was one example of maybe the latest prospect, but this has like been a pattern in the past, correct? Okay.
I would say.
Okay, perfect. So in that case, what do you think this part of you gains by essentially, to say, for lack of a better word, oversharing at that stage?
It saves me time in the long run. And I'm a huge...
So pause right there. Time how?
Because I'm a huge proponent of time, period. Time is precious to everybody, right? So I don't want to wait.
Pause right there, right? Yep. So I jump to C, where the pattern I've noticed is I got to give the milk to the cow. So I've given the thing away before anybody's actually agreed to pay me for it. But it's going to save me time. How? If, first and foremost, it's not serving the client, because you're actually wasting their time by giving them the thing that they're not ready for yet, because they haven't shown the commitment that they're ready for it. Obviously, it's wasting your time, especially if you're aware of the pattern. And then, 3, like, this is time you could, like, it's opportunity cost, or like you could be using this for something else. So is that narrative, this is actually saving me time, true?
Now that you framed it that way, no, it is not. But, for me, it's just like, I don't want to mislead you that, if I'm hearing that it's not going to be a good fit, I don't want to say, okay, I can do this, that, and the third. And then you decide that it may not be a good fit for you. Yeah.
Going back again to, because you said your integrity is one of your main strengths, right? So that answer makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't want to mislead. Integrity is super important to me. Beautiful, right? So in that instance, I don't want to mislead. What about not sharing the full picture of your expertise to somebody who's not ready for it yet? Because, and just so we're on the same page, I define readiness as this person has shown me that they're committed by putting their money down. Now I know that they're ready to actually, like, look at the space in my head. Prior to that, we're both determining whether we're ready. So if you spill the beans right away on the stuff that's in your head that they technically should be paying for, is that integrity with yourself?
Yeah. It's not a shared investment at that point.
Correct. So it's not a shared investment in your, it's not a mutual investment.
Yeah.
Right. But it is in integrity for you to give away your mental real estate for free, or worse, to deaf ears?
Mm. Yeah, I
So
see what you're
you
saying. Yeah.
you are in integrity with the other person. Like there's nothing about what you're doing that is remotely like I'm gonna screw you over. That's abundantly clear. Like you deeply care about the relationship, about the person, about delivering the value.
Mm-hmm.
In that space, though, the person you are neglecting, that you're not in integrity with, is actually yourself, because your needs aren't being met by
Mm-hmm.
pouring energy into an empty or
Cup.
cup, or like a cup that actually has like holes in it,
Yeah.
because they're not ready for it. They haven't demonstrated to you. So you are in integrity with the other, but not within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, does that resonate?
It does, because I mean, that's something that I'm learning to master even in my personal relationships. It's like when people just are not processing, don't do it. So I just need to take that same philosophy with me as I go into the workplace, and just make sure that I'm not wasting my time per se, or energy, speaking to someone who doesn't value enough to make that exchange of money in exchange for the mental wherewithal, the what's the word, the intelligence, I forgot what it's called, but anyway, you know what I mean. where we are paying in exchange for the mental information that you have to have, because it is a discipline, like you have to do so much to master this level. So I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Got it. And just to kind of drive the observation further, right? Because I mean, obviously it's the first time we've met. So like I'm going off of the stuff that you shared so far,
Mm-hmm.
right? But even there's things you said near the beginning. So like I'll kind of do anything to make sure that people don't perceive me the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If I combine that with what, like this saying, this integrity piece, or sharing everything,
Mm-hmm.
there is a strong need that like I have to prove at each moment like how smart and how good it is that I actually am, because I don't want to be perceived in a way that is like less than, that I'm not the expert, that I'm not delivering, that I'm not giving it my all. So it's like, again, the perspective is outside with the neglect of the self. Because I'm pretty sure, and I know we haven't dived into, you can let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the fulfillment bit, like what makes you so good at your job is you can see 10 steps ahead. And because this need to kind of like show and prove is so strong, you're probably spewing everything at them 10 steps ahead. Meanwhile, they're just trying to process like step one, right? So it's like it just falls on deaf ears because they don't get it, and then they get overwhelmed. Meanwhile, for you, there's this part of you that's like, no, but like this, and this, right? So does that resonate with regards to how like your kind of more day-to-day fulfillment work shows up?
I would say yes, because whenever I find that people are getting into minutia, right? I'll just tell them to pause. We'll come back to that for another day. Let's just focus on this. So I do break it down into smaller, more palatable meals, because it's a lot to digest when you're undertaking projects. And remember, a lot of projects deals with a lot of known unknowns. So you can't solve for what you don't know. So when you come into existence of these things, or awareness of these different things, that's when we have to say, okay, let's just take it one thing at a time. But that's why I also try to advocate that we don't just up and do stuff or rush to get to Z. Let's take a minute to dissect what it is that we're doing and think about every possible scenario of what can go right and what can go wrong, so that we can make sure that we plan for those different things. So I absolutely know what you're saying, because I've had to tell several people sometimes, okay, let's just pause. Let's just focus on this for right now, so that we don't get ahead of ourselves and put the cart before the horse. Now, if they go ahead and want to do that, then, of course I don't advise that, but, I go with the flow of what my client wants to do, because they're the ones who's inevitably paying for this endeavor.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we can get
Mm-hmm.
into a boundaries conversation there as well, because I mean, they are paying you to be the expert, which means you got to show them things that they don't know, and potentially go in a direction that they didn't initially anticipate. But just going back to then the like integrity piece and this kind of overarching need or inclination to put the other kind of in front of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a pattern that you see elsewhere in your life?
Ooh, this is good because I just had this conversation with one of my friends yesterday.
Yep.
And she said the same thing. That's why I'm laughing, because she was like, why are you so cognizant and mindful of other people, but you don't make them have that same awareness about you, and she was like, you respect other people, but you don't make them respect you. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So here is now where it begins to unpack into
Mm-hmm.
deeper things, right? And certainly
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be remnants of this and ripples of this within childhood of like how this pattern actually
Mm-hmm.
came to be, because it is fundamentally like a safety pattern. Like if
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is okay and if I can manage them, then I can feel safe on some level.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely if you're already seeing it in other people, it's showing up in relationships, right? This is now it's seeping into your business. And I would
Mm-hmm.
probably, I mean, I know we haven't gotten into this, but I would also guess that you're probably undercharging as well, because
Mm-hmm.
you're undervaluing the actual information you have in your head and your expertise
Mm-hmm.
because you're so quick to share it. So you're
Mm-hmm.
probably undercharging there as well, which probably means you're getting clients that also either don't have the capacity or the inclination to actually meet you at the level of your expertise. So
Mm-hmm.
does any of that resonate for you?
Yeah, that makes sense, because somebody else was telling me that I'm definitely undercharging. But they were
Yeah.
also a finance person. So he was like, you'd be charging a lot more for this.
100%, right? So now you're
Mm-hmm.
getting it from like
Two different
multiple
people.
different things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so now this is where it's starting to unpack, right? So you got the one aspect of how do you define integrity for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then it goes into boundaries, not just defining the boundaries that will keep you in integrity and prioritize you, by you, for you, because you value yourself, but then also being the referee of those boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and then really staying strong in your own power to charge what you're worth, to show up in a way that honors that, because you're not going to be consulting for free. So you can prove that you're good enough. Your
Mm-hmm.
price and your approach and the energy you bring to those negotiations will do that.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is kind of the overarching pictures on like what aspects of you are going to have to up level to really get you past
Mm-hmm.
that ceiling and beyond. So how does all of that like land for you?
It definitely makes absolute sense, you know. And you're right, it does go back to like upbringing, because of the fact that, when you look at things, and I mean, it can go down a whole rabbit hole of different issues, but when you also think about, societal things, like that plays a factor in how you perceive, and are either overly sensitive or desensitive to certain things, or desensitized to certain things um happening, like certain triggers and things like that, and just all of that stuff, right? So you're absolutely right, because I did, like, you just are not mindful that all of these little instances culminates into one bigger thing, and it defines who you are as a person and how you show up in the different spaces to the capacity that you show up. And, even if you code switch, or you just, I'm here, this is me, that type of thing, it all goes into that one instance.
100%. Yeah. And then when you add those other layers to it, like I'm sure even as a female going into, business and consulting where, like men or whatever are going to have to trust you. Like I can see the trigger to like, I have to actually prove myself more. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that absolutely makes sense. And it just kind of multiplies the sentiment that you're bringing in from whatever part of you that kind of learned this pattern long ago. Yeah, so I agree with you. There's a lot of layers here, but the good side of it is it's a beautiful space to be in, because from here you can blossom, right? Like
Right.
being aware of where I'm at. That's really the part that I just want to highlight. This isn't doom and gloom, so I can shut down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of those like I can either put this in the trunk and let it slow me down, or I can put it in the tank and let it fuel me, right? So
Right.
that's really like the space that you're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And obviously there's a lot here and there's so much we can do in, just one kind of podcast episode.
Mhm.
But does that feel complete for you? Is there still something left outstanding?
No, I mean, definitely. It definitely has given me something to think about for today, because you're absolutely right. Like just coming into this field, a tech space at that, where women are less than 6%, I've heard all kind of things, people just try to insult your intelligence, and question your reasoning of being here. And that's where it's like, okay, I've learned to just say, I don't want people to perceive, or question this because they verbally expressed that to me, So um it is a defense mechanism, but it's something for me to be mindful of and to make sure that I don't have to work as hard to prove myself because I have the credentials, I have the resume, I have the portfolio of the clients that I've helped, and I have proven track record of how I turn things around. So it's like I don't have to petition to you to get you to believe me. I said what I said. This is what I said. I meant what I said. Either it resonates with you or it doesn't, and maybe that's the stamp, not necessarily that way, but maybe that's the approach that I should have as opposed to the approach that you've identified earlier. So thank you for that. I appreciate
Amen. Okay. That's exactly the approach. You need to
it.
be like that energy, way more powerful than everything you just said prior. And I'm not discounting it, but I'm just saying like, yes, that, especially in those instances where there's like that sentiment of like, oh, like, I don't know, like that there's not a lot of like, especially you get something like that, there's not a lot of women in this space. Like, are you worth it? Whatever. Like, that's the energy you need to come into it with 110%. So yeah, I'm
Mhm.
glad that that's what popped up for you because 110%, that's it. So on that note, I always ask people to summarize their kind of takeaways and experience here. So if you could just summarize in your own
Mhm.
words, what was the problem that you came into the episode with, and then what was your biggest kind of takeaway or aha moment as a result of the conversation?
Absolutely. So my biggest issue that I perceived was my inability to have the soft skills that I needed to properly engage when dealing with difficult clients, or perceived difficult clients. And my takeaway is it's not that I need to be focused on my soft skills. It's just valuing and respecting myself that I am who I am. I said what I said. And this is who I am and this is what I do to help people. And either it resonates with you or it does not, and if not, that's fine. Then we know that we're at an impasse in terms of relationship and this is not where we're moving forward. But don't cower, don't dumb down, don't feel like you have to prove, you have everything that you need in your bag to be able to go on this journey. And you don't have to dump the bag out on the table to say, I'm ready to go.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think that was beautifully summarized, and thank you very much for that. And basically the floor is now yours to let everybody know, who's the best person to find you as far as any of the work that you do or like who you work with, and let everybody know where they can find you. Floor is yours for that.
Absolutely. So I am eager and interested in working with any small business owner who has any type of problem that you need a solution to be solved, or you have an idea and you're not quite sure, or you may already have this whole vision packaged in your mind and you just want to bounce ideas off of. I'm more than willing here to help you. I love to take visions and turn them into tangible products or services and to achieve results. So if that's someone like yourself and you need some help, feel free to reach out to me. I am on the web at alexisnicolewhite.com. You can also find me on all of the social media at Alexis, because I swear one day I'm going to hear Oprah say that. But my social media handles are all double letters, AHLEXIS, and I look forward to working with you soon.
Awesome. Well, we'll include all of that in the show notes. Alexis, thank you very much for coming on. And then for everybody else listening, you can catch my post call wrap up right after this. And otherwise, we'll see you on the next one.